Hi, welcome to the video. I know I'm gonna make a lot of videos on Daniel 70 weeks, but yeah. So the thing is, God's word. I think my theory is that it was designed to separate the wheat and tares and sheep and goats, and also to protect the house of Israel, the portion that came to Christ, not the portion that denied Christ in the flesh, but the portion that came to Christ, protect them for when they left for a gathering, the persecution not follow them. And so that's why in 1 Thessalonians, Paul commanded them to be quiet. And for example, 2 Thessalonians 2, where he mentioned gathering, he doesn't mention where, very little information given. And I think that's why there's hardly any information about where they actually went to the gathering. Matter of fact, I think most scholars have it wrong. Most scholars think they fled to Pella, based on the writing Eusebius, and another person in history basically quoted Eusebius. I don't remember the name of the person, and I think that is wrong. I don't think that's accurate. There's no evidence of that. The logistics does not make sense. If you look at the topography, there's no evidence. You don't see around Pella that the earth split to absorb the flood. But with Petra, we do see evidence of that, and there's plenty of scripture support for that's where they were gone, and logistics certainly fit. So I have a 3-part series on the gathering if you want to watch that. So anyway, on the Daniel 9, 24, 27, 70 weeks are decreed upon thy people and upon the whole city. So that was from 457 BC to 80, 33. That was exactly 490 years to finish transgression. I have here result, and then I result, repeated for each of the 6 pieces of Daniel 9:24. The reason I have that in there is that we understand that this is telling us it's to do these things, which obviously then result in these things. All right. It's not telling us these things have to happen inside that 70th week or 70 weeks. All right. It results in these 6 things. All right. So, because a lot of people think, for example, the sealed vision prophecy, that has to happen inside the 70th week. And no, it doesn't. It does not say that. The 70 weeks are to result in the 2 sealed vision prophecy. So it ended in AD 33, but resulted 33 years later. The reason being because during the 70 weeks, let's just go to verse 25. Know therefore and discern that from the going forth the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem. Okay, that commandment the commandment occurred in 457 BC, and so the rebuilding the wall that took 52 days to build was finished by the end of that year. The month Elul, which is the last month of the Jewish calendar. And unto the anointed one, Jesus was anointed in AD 26. That was exactly 483 years, which fits perfectly the time span of 7 weeks and the 62 weeks. All right, the 483 year total. It fits perfectly. And it shall be built again, the street and moat, even several times. All right. So, and after the 62 weeks, after AD 26, so the anointing would be cut off. So, this here is the murder. All right. The anointing would be cut off. All right. This is basically explaining us logical connections here. This is not telling us to make any modifications to the 70 weeks. All right. We just leave it alone, and it shall have nothing. So that was AD 30. That's after AD 26. It's like I said, after the 62 weeks. All right, right? So Not telling us to shift the 70th week over or split it, put a gap here or there. Not telling us to do any of that. Not telling us to shift anything. All right, I bring these things up because people do crazy stuff with this, and I just wanted to say no, don't do any of that. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and sanctuary. So you have the murder, 80-30, and results in judgment due to the murder, which is 80-66 to 80-70, where the Jewish people that Christ came for did not pay their taxes. They took over the Masada, and they stopped the sacrifice for Caesar, for the foreigners. The combination of these three things led to Nero to order destruction of the temple and city. All right, the temple and the city. So they were the ones responsible, the people of the prince, for the destruction of the city and sanctuary. The Jews who rejected Christ and who did those three things I just mentioned in 80-66. Alrighty. So February 67 when Nero gave the order. Alright. Due to things that happened in 80-66. Alrighty. So a lot of people get confused with that. And the prince here, if we follow basic rules of grammar, this is very important, is referring to the main subject, Messiah the prince. Alright, right here, Messiah the prince. Anointed one the prince. Alright, if my theology does not fit basic rules of grammar, that is contrary to the scriptures. And that's dominant today. The majority are not following basic rules of grammar passage. And it's a difficult passage because it requires a great deal of understanding of a lot of the Bible and history as well. So what people do is that when they get to a point where, the basic rules of grammar does not work, I'm just going to make the prince whatever I want. I'm going to make it Titus or Antichrist or whatever. And that grammar does not allow that. So, and that's dominant. So the majority of people, again, just dodge around the grammar, and they don't have the patience to follow basic rules of grammar and just sit on it for a while to come up with the answer. But I just gave you the answer. So, and the end thereof shall be with the flood. That was April 11th. That was the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The timing of it, when the Roman soldiers stormed in. So they were waiting until there was a time of peace and relaxation, and their guards were down, and they stormed. The Roman soldiers took advantage of that. Titus took advantage of that. And even to the end of the war, 80-73 Roman army left Masada. Okay, that was the very end. According Josephus believed the Roman Jewish war from 80-66 to 80-73, the end of it shall be war. All right, so it all tied together. Yeah, and it fits the timeline perfectly when you piece all this together, and it ended 80-73 when you use Josephus' writings and scriptures, all the time indicators, you piece it together. It ended up with September 22nd, 80-73 being their last day. The relations are determined, and he shall make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. Now, making a firm covenant, my understanding of that, it's you have to have people in the covenant in order to make it firm. If nobody enters into the covenant, the covenant just disappears. All right. So that's what that's telling us. I believe is happening. Was telling us is that last 7-year period, people are entering in that covenant. So this from 80-26 to 80-33, many Jews entered the covenant that week, making it firm. Without this, the covenant would never been made firm. All right. And in the midst of the week, 80-30 shall cause the sacrifices and the oblation to cease. That ties in to the anointed one being cut off. In 80-30, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And upon the week of abomination, this is due to the cessation of the sacrifices. theologically, okay, she shall cause the sacrifice. He here referring to Christ, by the way, basic rule of grammar again. All right, but that's his death on the cross. So those who continued on with the sacrifice, then they were considered abomination. This went from AD 30 all the way to AD 66. That's the wing of abominations. So August 14th of AD 66 was the last day, and that was shall come one that make desolate. That was Elder, the lawless one. He's the one that ordered the cessation of sacrifices. All right. And so his dad was the restrainer. And when his dad died that day, August 14th, 1866, the lawlessness of him just came out right away. And he was revealed. And that's when they took off for their gathering. I believe it was 28 days later. The stick of Joseph, the Jews who were scattered throughout, the Jews who were not in the temple in Jerusalem, okay, the ones that were scattered around the Roman Empire, they had left for their gathering once he was revealed. So they basically had a second set of eyes on him the entire time. All right, so he's the, I think, where is it, in Revelation, talks about the two beasts, okay. The first beast was Rome, and you had the singular and corporate. So singular was Nero, and then he died, and then transferred to Titus, and then Rome was the corporate, and then you had the second beast, which was Israel, the harlot. They're the ones that came up from the land. Okay, so beast from the sea is the first one. Beast from the land was Israel. The ones that who rejected Christ. I believe about 2/3 of Israel rejected Christ. So they're the ones that also were murdering Jews who came to Christ. All right. So the singular of the second beast was, I believe, Elder. All right. When someone mentions he this, he that, it would be referring to him. Now Josephus did not record much in the way of miracles that took place to the Elder, but he had to been the one. He fits, minus that, no record of him doing all kinds of miracles. He fits the bill perfectly. He fits the timeline. I mean, he fits perfectly. And that term shall wrap be poured upon the desolate, AD 73. So it wrapped up in AD 73. So yes, the temple was destroyed in AD 70, marked the end of an age, but it's not the end of all things. And so unfortunately, I believe it. As I'm making this video, the majority of full preterists thinks that the destruction of the temple at the end of all things. It just was not. I disagree with that. So you have timeline judgment coming. This right here. This is the simplified version. All right. There's a more detailed version. Click up here, the green link. The green link up here. It will open this up. This is a more detailed version. All right. And then timeline the 70th week in the south. So let's go back where it says she'll make a covenant for many from 1 week. Let's look at that 1 week. This is that last week. Daniel, no gaps. I also did not do any shifting. So you had Christ's ministry the first 3.5 years, and then death on the cross right in the middle of the week. He caused the end to sacrifices because he is the perfect sacrifice. Hebrews 9:26, where it talks about consummation of the ages. That happened at his sacrifice. All right, no more sacrifices. But you still had Jews who were more loyal to Caesar. Jews not Christ in the flesh. They continued on with it, which was the wing of abominations, and it kept going on all the way until AD 66. So then the second half. Now, the first half, very few. You had 11 out of the 12 apostles. The Father brought them in the new covenant. They had the keys to the kingdom, Matthew chapter 16, 18. And I'm sure there are probably some more. But there are very few that entered into the covenant during those first 3.5 years. All right. The second half, that's where many entered into the covenant, making it firm. All right. Right here. The gospel was being spread. I see this as the Jewish Reformation. So in Hebrews 9:10, where it talks about time of Reformation, I believe it's referring to the period right here, the second half, the end of the 70th week. Now, Hebrews 9, the writer Paul, he's looking back in history all the way to the foundation of the world. That gives us the full time span. So I believe he's looking backwards in time, and then he ends with appointed men to die one, then judgment. And he kind of goes future at the very end of the chapter. But prior to that he's looking at the end, but working backwards in time from the time he wrote Hebrews, probably around 8064, 8063, around there, which I get from this book thanks to Tony Everett Denton. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Hebrews, from flawed to flawless fulfilled. I highly recommend it. So that's what made the covenant firm, by them entering into it. And so the Daniel's 70th week ended on Tishri 5. It was really Tishri 5. So I have Tishri 6 here. Yeah, it should have been Tishri 5. So I'll have to fix that. Wow, I didn't realize. I'm constantly fixing mistakes. Always fixing. It's so easy to make mistakes in this. So then the next day, Tishri 6, that was the last day of the 70th week. Tishri 6. Or no, I'm sorry, Tishri 5 is the last day of the 70th week. And then the next day, the gospel goes to the Gentiles. And yes, on Tishri 6. That's correct. Tishri 6. This should be Tishri 5 here and Tishri 6 here. So, that was Saturday. Acts chapter 10 occurred. So on that day, that's where the gospel went to the Gentiles. The Cornelius household, just the Cornelius household. That was huge, significant. Because you had the law of Leviticus that did not allow the Jew to, just walk it, knock on the house door of a Gentile house and eat with them, for they were considered unclean. It would have been a violation of the law if Peter had shared the gospel with the Cornelius household in his house. So God had made Cornelius household clean. That allowed Peter to go in there without breaking the law. You should read Acts 10 carefully. Peter was hesitant to share. He ended up sharing after getting his vision and all that. He realized that it was actually made clean. And so that was huge, because that was the day where the promise made to Abraham that your father of many nations took off. All right, that really made the covenant firm at that point forward. So he went to the Jews first, and then the Gentile household, and took off from there. And that did not make Peter an apostle of the Gentiles, though. He was always an apostle of the Jews from day one. Paul's an apostle of Gentiles. That day was just an official transition, the gospel going from Jew to Gentile. And 5 chapters later, Acts 15, I believe Peter mentioned a little bit about Gentile. Paul's around, and Paul basically took it off from there. So, So anyway, so some people put in a gap, like they take they agree with the timeline here, the first half of the 70th week, and they stop, and they put a gap here, and they take the second half here, and they move this to 8066 to 8070, which is kind of a violation of hermeneutics there. But the problem with that is nobody entered, from 8066 to 8070, nobody's entering into the covenant. So it does not fit what's highlighted in blue here, Daniel 9:27. He shall make firm a covenant many from 1 week. He had to make firm that covenant. The covenant would not be made firm from 8066 to 8070. That does not fit. Again, there's no gap here. It's 1 week. So it was made firm during this week, a 7-year period. All right. And the other will take the 70 weeks and shift the whole thing over 36 years. Reason why some do that because they think that the seal night vision of prophecy had to take place inside the 70th week. But like I already mentioned to you earlier, this video, no, it results in the seal night vision of prophecy. It's not required that happens inside the 70th week. So because they believe that, they end up taking the whole 70 weeks and shifting it over 36 years, so it ends right at 80-70. Well, the problem with that last week, with their version of it, from 80-66 to 80-63, sorry, to 80-70, nobody entered into the covenant then. The tribes of Israel were already sealed, Revelation 7. Josephus writes, he writes in 80-70, looking back to 80-66, the things that were going on, that's like, wow, all these divine things were happening and they're just not getting it. They're just oblivious to it. And that's because their hearts were so hardened by this point. I'm referring to the Jews in that Christ in the flesh. Those who rejected the gospel here, from that point forward, from here during the Reformation, from that point forward, their hearts just hardened. Per Romans chapter 11, I think verse 7, 5 through 7, around there. I think it's verse 7. Yeah, it just hardened from that point forward. So nobody entered in the covenant during that time. So that definitely does not fit with this. What's highlighted blue here? He shall make firm covenant many for a week. Yeah. So the destruction of the temple make the new covenant firm? No. Again, if no one entered into the new covenant, yeah, the temple would be destroyed, and still the new covenant still never be established and wither away. So that's completely irrelevant. It just confirms that the old covenant was being done away with. You still have some who rejected Christ. Were still alive in 80-70. So it wasn't until 80-73 the last of them, the enemies of Israel, were destroyed. So that marked the end of all things, or got very close to the end of all things at that point. So anyway, hope this all makes sense to you. It's just my understanding of it. I give you the days, some math, all works out beautifully. If you're doing the calculation, wait a minute, it doesn't work out right, I recommend converting to the Jewish calendar, the year, and do the math from there. Then it works out perfectly, and then convert to Gregorian from there. All right, I don't recommend doing the math from the Gregorian. And do I factor in year zero or not? Gregorian actually had year zero in it. The Julian calendar did not have year zero. That's why year zero never used when they say year zero never used. But in the Gregorian calendar, it has year zero, and that's where things get a little confusing. So just to make it easier, what I do is I do the math from the Jewish calendar, the Hebraic calendar, and that way if I add 483 years here or 490 years there or 7 years there, it's always going to be right. And so yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you don't mind, maybe you could share this video on social media. I'm not on social media other than YouTube, but yeah, if you think this is worthy to share on social media, yeah, go ahead and share it. So, all right, well, thank you very much, and hope you have an awesome day.